Is another India-Pakistan war imminent? After getting hammered by the Indian Air Force and Indian Army on the battlefield, Pakistani leaders are now issuing hollow threats to India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. After Munir, the latest to join the bandwagon is Bilawal Bhutto. Sorry, that was the wrong clip. This is what Bilawal actually said.
कि जंग की सूरत हो तो जंग में भी हम इनका मुकाबला कर सकते हैं.
He elaborated, quote, "You people are strong enough for war to get back all 6 rivers. If India continues on this path, it leaves us with no choice except to consider all options, including the possibility of war, to protect our national interests." So Bilawal now wants all 6 rivers of the Indus River system and not just 3. But did you notice, he says Pakistani people will fight against India. But he's correct, since the Pakistani military is no match to the Indian armed forces as seen in the recent war. To such Pakistani warmongering, India says, bring it on. On India's 79th Independence Day, Prime Minister Modi declared that no treaty will be valid until Pakistan ends its support to cross-border terror. From the Red Fort, Modi declared, quote, "India has decided that blood and water will not flow together. Now my fellow countrymen have clearly understood how unjust and one-sided the Indus Agreement is. The waters of rivers originating in India have been irrigating the fields of our enemies, while the farmers and the land of my own country remain thirsty without water. Only India has the right to its rightful share of water," unquote. But Pakistani leaders are shaken by the recent Indian military operation and have chosen to project fake bravado instead of diplomacy and dialogue to renegotiate this treaty. Bilawal added, quote, "If you think of carrying out an attack like Sindoor, then know that the people of every province of Pakistan are ready to fight you, and that this is a war you will definitely lose," unquote. But what's the point of issuing such hollow threats? In reality, everyone knows the Pakistani military surrendered its demand for Indus Water Treaty restoration and then called India to request a ceasefire. In other words, Munir has already surrendered the Indus Water Treaty despite all his fake bravado. The Indian Army, on the other hand, achieved all its military objectives of destroying 9 terror camps in 9 Pakistani cities, and then the Indian Air Force turned more than 10 Pakistani air bases to dust, as shown by verifiable satellite images by international agencies. The Narendra Modi government has already declared the Indus Water Treaty will remain in abeyance. Remember, India suspended the treaty after yet another terror attack by a Pakistan-backed terror group, this time in Pahalgam, Kashmir, where 26 Hindus were singled out and massacred. Time and again, Pakistan-based terror groups have targeted civilians in India, from 2008 Mumbai attacks to 2001 Parliament attack. But now, such terror attacks will be treated as acts of war by India.
पानी और खून भी एक साथ नहीं बह सकता.
In fact, the Modi government has already approved the biggest hydropower project in Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir to be built on the Chenab River without any intimation or notification to Pakistan as required under the now trashed IWT. The centre is already inviting contracts for this mega 1,856 megawatt hydropower project, which will go a long way in meeting India's energy needs. Who is Pakistan to stop India from building development projects inside its own territory? In fact, Munir says he will strike any such dam with 10 missiles. He should rather worry why Pakistani air defenses failed to stop even a single Indian BrahMos missile from hitting 10 different air bases, as well as Bahawal terror camp, more than 120 kilometers deep inside Pakistan's Punjab.
बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल अभी लॉन्च किए हैं, एक नूर खान एयरपोर्ट पे गिरा है.
Pakistan military GHQ Rawalpindi could have easily become another target had the Indian leadership simply wanted it to. Bilawal's statement is in a series of fake threats being issued by Pakistani leadership towards India. Even the Pakistan PM's office is threatening to, quote, "teach you a lesson that you will never forget." But If they were so concerned about IWT, then why did Pakistan request a ceasefire from India before restoration of the IWT? Sharif's statement is nothing more than damage control after Pakistan's heavy defeat in the recent war. Earlier, during his recent visit to the United States, Pakistan's Army Chief General Asim Munir delivered one of his most provocative speeches to date. The army chief made international headlines after making a series of anti-India comments, and he did not stop there. Along with anti-India rhetoric, he also went on to make nuclear threats to take down half of the world. Speaking to members of the Pakistani diaspora in Tampa, Florida, Munir's message was hard-hitting and shocking. Media reports quoted him saying, quote, "We are a nuclear nation. If we think we are going down, we'll take half the world down with us," unquote. Firstly, this statement reveals the state of perpetual fear the Pakistani general now lives in after Operation Sindoor. Pakistani leadership fears an existential threat from the far superior Indian military. Munir also reveals that he has no immediate plans to counter India, saying, quote, "We will wait for India to build a dam, and when it does, we will destroy it with 10 missiles. In other words, Munir is admitting that Islamabad is currently helpless to prevent India from constructing its hydropower projects on the Chenab River. Munir also described Kashmir as not an internal matter of India, but an incomplete international agenda. Again, he is forgetting history. In 1947, the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, legally and lawfully acceded the entire state to join India before an invasion by Pakistan-backed militants. So Islamabad has no historic or no legal claims to Kashmir at all. All that remains is the return of legal Indian territory, which is currently under illegal Pakistani occupation. Indian leaders and Ministry of External Affairs instantly slammed and denounced Munir's rhetoric in the US. MEA called it as nuclear saber-rattling is Pakistan's stock in trade and described his comments as irresponsible and dangerous. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal stated, quote, "The international community can draw its own conclusions on the irresponsibility inherent in such remarks, which also reinforce the well-held doubts about integrity of nuclear command and control in a state where the military is hand in glove with terror groups," unquote. Jaiswal added, "India has already made it clear it will not give in to nuclear blackmail and will take all steps to safeguard our national security." India is not the only country to denounce Asim Munir's remarks. Munir's nuclear rattling has generated concern inside the US as well. Former Pentagon official Michael Rubin referred to the warmongering by Pakistan and said that Islamabad was behaving like a rogue state. He compared Pakistan's de facto military ruler to Bin Laden and the AQ mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks. The former Pentagon official claims Munir's recent statements sounded like those of the Islamic State. Rubin added, "Americans look at terror through lens of grievance. They don't understand the ideological underpinnings of many terror groups. Asim Munir is Bin Laden in a suit," unquote. In an interview with news agency ANI, he added, "Pakistan's threat on American soil are completely unacceptable." Going beyond traditional military threats, Munir directly pointed to Reliance Industries' Jamnagar refinery in Gujarat as a potential military target. Pakistan is clearly envious of India's growth and infrastructure. The Jamnagar refinery in India is the world's largest single-site oil refining complex, which puts Pakistan to shame. This is the first time that a Pakistani military leader has signaled an intent to strike India's vital oil and energy infrastructure. Munir gave away his intention by using a social media post containing an image of Mukesh Ambani, head of Reliance Industries. The post itself referred to aerial attacks, symbolically hinting at Pakistan's view of a future war involving possible airstrikes or missile strikes targeting India's vital economic installations. Pakistan's decision to choose Jamnagar was not random. The refinery, operated by Reliance Industries, processes 33 million tons of crude annually, accounting for about 12% of India's total refining capacity. Targeting Jamnagar, Munir hinted, could be equivalent to hitting the heart of India's economic engine. Officials in New Delhi stressed that India's military edge, superior manpower and advanced technologies, including the Russian-made S-400 air defense system, can easily tackle Pakistani threats. Defense experts have assured the public that India's military and intelligence agencies constantly evaluate threats to sensitive sites like the Jamnagar oil refinery and are prepared for any future misadventures. Analysts also believe Munir's statement signals a shift in Pakistan's strategy from attempting to target military posts or population centers to now targeting infrastructure crucial for India's economic growth, export power, and energy security. Former Pentagon official Michael Rubin added, Pakistan should be the first major non-NATO ally to be listed as a state sponsor of terror and should not be a member of the US Central Command anymore. The idea that a Pakistani army chief, if pressed to the brink, could take half the world down exposes deep insecurity within Pakistan as well as a broader anxiety about regional stability. With both India and Pakistan being nuclear armed, such statements significantly raise the stakes of any future potential conflict. But Munir's anxiety is understandable. Just days ago, NDA leadership, led by the BJP, passed a historic resolution which also indicated India's evolving strategy. Pakistani military support to UN-designated global terror groups like Jaish and Lashkar will not be tolerated anymore. The resolution stated three things. Firstly, acts of terror will be treated as acts of war and will invite an overwhelming response from the Indian military. Secondly, India will not tolerate any nuclear blackmail and will strike any and all terror hideouts, which means Munir's nuclear threats will just not work anymore. And lastly, and most importantly, India will not differentiate between government-backed terror and global terror groups. Since the world knows Pakistani military has deep links to global terror networks, this puts the Pakistani military leadership now in India's crosshairs. Munir fears the next BrahMos could have his name written on it. But what do you believe? Is the Modi government right to suspend the Indus Water Treaty in response to repeated terror attacks by Pakistan-backed terror groups? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.